This morning I woke up next to the Murray River, about half an hour southeast of Uluru. I've camped here with my son Lachlan. We're returning to Sydney after a trip that took us through Mudgee, Dubbo, Nyngan, Cobar and Wilcannia, Broken Hill, Port Augusta, Coober Pedy, up to Yalara and the Uluru Katajutu National Park. In a matter of days, we've driven thousands of kilometres past arid, rocky expanses with the occasional cattle eking out a hard scrabble existence. The country towns between the larger centres all have these buildings that suggest that the early settlers thought they were onto something good and their towns and communities were likely to grow. There are sturdy pubs, bank buildings and civic halls that seem pretty empty now, a shadow of their former dreaming. Was it the wars that decimated these communities? Or was it because the gold ran out? Or was it the water? Water is everything. The difference between the landscapes of the remote dry country we've crossed and the irrigated vineyards of the riverlands it's just astonishing. My dad's told me the time when the Murray was an active transportation route, serving a vigorous economy along the border. Trade between towns with agriculture and industry flourished for a time. Where's all that gone? The Murray itself, I believe, is a shadow of her former self. But it seems that the management of the MurrayDarling Basin has been notoriously riven with conflict. I don't know where the plan is at today, but I'm pretty sure that there are many people who are still unhappy about the way that this precious resource is shared. I wonder what this place would be like if the river always ran near the high water mark. See, the other night we camped at Agnes Creek, near the NTSA border. And like every creek we crossed on the Stuart Highway, Agnes Creek was dry. There's been a bit of rain up at Uluru and the life around the rock was amazing. Trees and grasses were thriving. The waterholes were teeming with massive tadpoles and there were plentiful birds feasting on the insects. There we go. Water is everything. What if water was abundant across this country? What if the creeks were constantly flowing? That there was plenty for irrigation, for backyard gardeners, for industry and the resources sector. What could be grown, manufactured and traded? How many millions could be fed? What could be built? Now, how many 21st century jobs could be created? Now, look, I'm not an agronomist, an environmentalist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer or an economist, so look, my observations and questions might be dismissed as too stupid to warrant any further attention. But it seems to me that if we aren't actively and creatively formulating a 21st century plan for this country, look, I'd really like to know the reason. Once upon a time, the plan was, if it moves, shoot it, if it doesn't, cut it down. When you fly over this country, you can see the devastation. Nature didn't clear the country along straight lines. Our predecessors did, and they probably thought that they were doing a good thing based on what they could see and what they knew. We now know the destruction was abominable, and the mass of our population, we've headed to the coast. What will be unforgivable is if our generation, equipped with history, science, technology and democracy, if we don't do something about it. Something can be done. We don't have to have all the answers now to be certain that something can be done. The problems of inland Australia, they seem very complex, as are the opportunities. But I think there is a possible solution and, you know, what the heck, I'm going to run this up the flagpole and see if anyone salutes. What are the two most valuable resources our country needs? Valuable because without them, We cannot add value to our mineral resources, and we can't cultivate food for Australians and the growing populations across Asia, indeed around the world. We need water and we need energy. Israel has averted an environmental cataclysm by investing in multiple desalination plants. Australia has several, but the large ones are there to supply large urban centres. And in any event, the quantities of water that they produce supply just a percentage of drinking water. Now, we drove past the Sundrop farms in Port Augusta. Look them up. It's a high-tech farm that'll supply supermarkets with truss tomatoes, probably other stuff. They've got a desalination plant as part of their production process. It seems to me that a simple idea, right, once we've worked out how to build and power effective desalination plants, a simple idea is to build lots of them, hundreds, thousands, with deep, distant ocean outfalls and management plans so that the process doesn't create other problems in the oceans. That'll be the next technical problem to which we can find a solution. The immediate problem would be how to power them. Despite hostility from other sectors and disappointingly some Australian governments, renewable technologies have advanced and they keep advancing, bringing down the cost of generation and storage and increasing the capacity of storage. Enter Elon Musk and the South Australian battery farm. I've become a bit of a fan and admirer of Elon Musk. If Ashley Vance's biography of Musk is accurate, Musk's big vision is about building a human settlement, a human city on Mars. It'll be a step towards solving mankind's, someday need to move to another planet when Earth's number is up. A sustainable settlement on Mars? Why do you need to go to Mars for a challenge? What about this place? That's a far more immediate challenge. It seems to me that we could do with more water. If it doesn't come from the sky, and we can't plunder the aquifer without disastrous consequences, we should get it from the oceans via desalination plants and pump it inland. What's going to power that? The sun. You cannot imagine how much sun hits the Australian outback until you've spent time living under it. It is phenomenal. Australians should not have to pay for electricity, like Eskimos should not have to pay for ice. Okay? Australian industry should not be held hostage or worse, run out of town because of the high cost of energy. Energy-intensive Australian industries, they're not being held hostage by the greenies. It's inaction or lack of vision or guts on the part of our political and commercial leadership, perhaps. I don't know, are we being denied a more prosperous future by people or systems who are invested in the status quo? Where is the plan? Where's the long-term plan? Look, yes, new problems emerge. That's to be expected. Young people in Australia should be encouraged and supported to study science, electrical science, computer, environmental, social sciences, so that we have generations of smart, well-equipped experts who can create, solve, and to help us evolve. We've got to advance from being the lucky country to being the smart country because we've got abundant energy. We can desalinate the waters from our abundant oceans and pipe it in Australian manufactured pipes untold distances to farms, forests, parks, gardens, creeks and dams all over the country, to mines, factories, cities. We should start where the people are and let it spread. How much carbon could be captured on an irrigated Australian continent? We could shift from being one of the world's highest per capita carbon emitters to becoming the global solution by transforming our lands into a verdant paradise. You know, we can show the Americans and the Canadians and the Russians and the Chinese, you know, how it can be done, although it seems like we're falling behind some of those countries. So, look, you think this is nuts? Come into the Riverland and see the irrigated vineyards standing next to arid, flinty, unwatered country. You know, see what the Israelis have achieved, what the Chinese are achieving in their deserts. How would Indigenous Australia benefit from this? You know, I don't have the answer, but it's hard to see that what's currently in place is working particularly well. A more vibrant, prosperous inland Australia would have to mean more jobs. As you drive along the Stuart Highway, you know, from Port Augusta up to Coober Pedy to Alice Springs, every few kilometres you hit a cattle grader. And it's a reminder that this country was carved up and consigned in the days before anyone knew that the sun could be transformed into electrical energy. There's got to be a better future for all of us. I'm sure there are people who are well ahead of me in thinking about this and doing things about it. I want this to become part of our mainstream dialogue. You know, if we worry a little less about keeping people out and give more attention to making the most of the nature's gifts that we've got. If you think these ideas are worth consideration by people that you know, please share the video. Give this conversation some attention and energy, and let's see what we can achieve. Thanks for your attention. Bye for now.